I'm going to be talking about something I wrote about recently titled Table Fellowship and the Called Out Assembly. It's a little study on the words Ekklesia, which talks about church and how the Greco-Roman era understood that word. And it all begins in Matthew 16. In verse 13, it says, when Jesus came into a region in Philippi, he asked his disciples, who do you say I am? Skipping forward, Simon Peter answered and said, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail against it. He wasn't saying he's going to build the church on Peter. He said he was going to build the church on that revelation of the Messiah, the Son of the living God, and he'll work through Peter to build that church. It then goes on to say, which is some of the coolest verses in the Bible, I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Some translations talk about how what is already bound and loosed on earth will already be bound and loosed in heaven. And in our modern world, when someone says, I'm going to church, we usually picture a building, don't we? A specific time on a Sunday, a worship set list. But to Jesus, community wasn't an event you attended. It was a new way for people to live together, essentially. It was a radical new culture that Jesus modeled for us. And when Jesus first mentions this word, church, he uses that word ecclesia. And like I said, in the Greco-Roman era, the Gentiles, the Jews, the Romans all living together, it wasn't a religious word at all. It was a secular term, often used in business. It talked about a gathering of citizens called out from their homes to conduct business, usually business of the city. He was saying that church is not a static temple. The ecclesia is a mobile, active assembly. Pretty cool, isn't it? Very different how a lot of people sometimes interpret the word. It means we're called out, what we called out of, and what we called out into. I'm proposing that we're called out of the world and we're called into community and fellowship. In that culture, where you sat at the table signalled your social worth, but Jesus flipped this, telling his followers to take the lowest seat in Luke 14. It isn't important that we share a meal. What is important is that we share a life, serve each other, and attend to anything that may serve another's interests. And in his final prayer in John 17, Jesus prays that his followers will be one. And to understand the weight of this, we have to look at a different Hebrew word. I'll try and pronounce it, echad. And this is where I talk about unity within diversity. It doesn't mean sameness or uniformity. It means that we are one body with different parts, different functions, different ways of thinking, different ways of doing things. The arms do things different to the feet. And the ears do things different to the eyeballs. He said, whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone else. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others. Serve, that word there, is diakonos. Jesus says the greatest among you must be a servant. And that word, diakonos, means to wait at a table and offer food and drink to the guests and to minister and attend to anything that may serve another's interests. And that's what we're called out of. That's what ecclesia is. That's what fellowship is. Called out of the world and into that unity within diversity, that fellowship, that community. I'm starting to lose my breath climbing this massive or slight gradient, let's be honest.